What is going on, Cardano community? Welcome back to the official Dapp Central YouTube channel. My name is Fareed, and in today's amazing interview, I'm going to be joined with CJ, who's going to be the co-founder of the Reach Metaverse. Now, if you guys are not familiar with Reach, they're going to be a Metaverse as a service platform right now, building on Cardano, but with the plans of going multi-chain. So CJ, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Fareed.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I think this has been long overdue. You and I got to meet and hang out for a little bit during the CNFTCon event, which took place in Vegas last year. And since then, I know you guys have been hard at work building. And so I'm excited to hear about everything you guys have been working on in the meantime.
Definitely, yeah. No, it was great catching you there. Love seeing your channel growing since then. It's been super cool. So yeah, glad to catch up.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's been a lot of work, but it is paying off. And again, having you here, I think it's going to be good for us to kind of talk about what Reach is, what the metaverse space is, and exactly what you guys are going to be bringing not only to Cardano, but to the blockchain space in general. So before we jump into today's video, I want to briefly touch on some of the topics that we're going to be covering as a part of this interview with CJ. And so first things first, we're going to kick things off with a brief overview of what a metaverse is and exactly how us general people can get access to the Reach Metaverse. We'll then dive into some of the specifics around what Reach is bringing, your plans on going multi-chain, then also an upcoming token launch, which I believe is going to be right around the corner. And then we're going to talk about some of the benefits that the Reach Metaverse is bringing to the community. So without taking up any more time, CJ, do you mind kind of briefly touching on your background and exactly what the Metaverse space is and what it's bringing to blockchain?
Definitely. Yeah. So my first, this is also one of my favorite questions to ask people is how did you get into Web3? Because people come from so many different backgrounds. Mine kind of comes from a little bit of operations. I studied logistics, finance a little bit, kind of started dipping my toe in the water with crypto early on. I was hearing about it and how it could be used in logistics and verification processes. And then I started getting into some coins, researching projects. And then I started finding out more about Metaverse a little bit before the time that Meta did its big name change. So I was getting into it, doing some research, and I kept seeing all these things where people are going into these virtual environments. I had a VR headset, mainly because of Beat Saber, because it's really fun. But then I was getting more into these 3D virtual worlds and experiencing this, and I was seeing kind of how cool this technology was. And around the same time, our CEO Paysol and our CTO Solomon and Showery were also working on some things around this area. Showery had been in blockchain and Ethereum and Cardano, and Solomon and Pace have been building this really cool engine for engineering purposes. And we kind of got together and we're talking about what this engine can do and these tools and where 3D development was going. And that's kind of where Reach Cloud was born, is basically providing tools for people to build virtual environments, because we saw a lot of value in having 3D environments that are multi-platform. You can access them on your phone, your PC, in VR, and have the same experience as the other person on the other end, communicate with them, interact with 3D objects. And we were seeing applications for that in physical therapy, in gaming, in Web3. So when it comes to what is a metaverse, there's a lot of different ways they can be used, but generally the way I look at it is one of two things. One, it's a more connected and personalized way to interact through a digital medium than you had before. It's also kind of a new UI or user interface for the internet, and especially for blockchain. There's some unique opportunities to kind of act as the interface for blockchain, kind of leveling up this immersion into what the internet is and what it's becoming, because the transition from Web 2 to Web 3. So generally, that's the frame in which I look at what Metaverse is. It's applying more levels of connection, more levels of interaction, and then also being able to apply that functionality with a lot of these Web3 connectivity elements and interactions with one blockchain, multiple blockchains. But we'll get into the multi-chain stuff later on, as Fareed said.
Yeah, really solid explanation there. And this is something that I think you guys have been working on for quite a bit of time. Now, I want to just kind of ask why Cardano, at least initially. As you said, we're going to talk about multi-chain in just a second, but why Cardano?
Yeah, Cardano. So I can trace that all the way to Showery. He had experience in Ethereum, was following Cardano from its inception, and it was just like, guys, where this is going, like, believe me, this is where we want to be. And I didn't have as much understanding of how right he was then as I understand now, but Cardano's kind of focus on research back things, putting things out when they've been developed rather than trying to rush. Because that's something that we firmly believe in our project is we don't want to overhype something and then underdeliver. We'd rather tell you what it is and put it out and make it accessible. And we really felt kind of kindred with Cardano on that front. And then from a kind of utility and business standpoint, the gas fees compared to Ethereum that we would have had to deal with there would have been really tough. So from a financial standpoint, we were also like, this makes much more sense, and we saw more utility in it long term.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the gas fees. I was interviewing Sven from Foreon Network, which is a prediction platform that is going to be building on Cardano.
Mhm.
And that's a question that I like to ask a lot of the people that I interview. And so I asked him the same exact question, and he gave me the same exact answer. And I can also attest to that, that when I first came into the space, I was trying to, play around with DeFi and just play around with my wallets and just making basic transactions. And I quickly realized that it just was not feasible, at least for myself. Maybe
Mhm.
other people, they're able to, use Ethereum and not necessarily have to worry about, the price of gas and all that. But even most recently with the Pepe, meme coin takeoff,
Mhm.
transactions are like $35 to $36, to push through in terms of gas. And I'm just like, wow, that's a lot,
Mhm.
If you take a look
Mhm.
at that, every time that you're making a transaction, that's quite a bit of money that you're putting to the side. So for me, it's very hard, especially for a platform like yourself, which I'm sure if you guys are operating on the blockchain, there's numerous transactions occurring within, the platform that you guys are using to host these different metaverses, or maybe just within even the metaverse itself, that it just probably doesn't seem feasible to really use a platform like Ethereum. So again, not a knock on them, but it's always
Mhm.
interesting to hear how other people have come into the space and how similar people have of stories when it comes to their experiences with Ethereum. So I think Ethereum really needs to take a look at that and figure out a way to make it more affordable for people to come in, because that seems to be the common thread with people coming into
Mhm.
Cardano on top of like the tech and the community, etc. So interesting
Yeah.
thoughts there.
Yeah,
Now,
and there are, just to touch on that real quick, there are a couple different barriers to entry into blockchain and Web3,
mhm.
and that for Cardano, I think is one of the things that they do well is basically kind of removing that or minimizing that price barrier to entry. And there are a couple others, and all the chains are working on different ways to try to make that more accessible. But definitely, that removal of barriers to entry is super valuable.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, I want to dive deeper into Reach, right? So, you've
Mhm.
given us an overview of what the metaverse is. We've talked about why Cardano, but let's talk more about what exactly is Reach providing. Again, you guys are going to
Mhm.
be a metaverse as a service platform, allow people to build their own metaverses. So, you guys aren't actually
Mhm.
building and approaching this like 99% of these other projects out there that are building their own metaverse and saying, hey, you guys come and play in our metaverse. You're actually giving everybody the tools that they need to be able to build whatever kind of metaverse that maybe fits their needs, right? And so I saw
Mhm.
you guys recently were integrated or were being used by a medical business. So do you mind kind of
Mhm.
talking about that, and again, how your approach to the metaverse is different than all the other players right now in this space?
Definitely. And I think with the massive growth and interest in metaverses, we're really looking at it as what's a niche where our skill sets can really provide the most value. Because where we excel is building tools and providing ways for people to do things, and then letting them, basically the people who have built these communities and grown them, provide those community with a lot of value through our tools without having to worry about developing all of those tools, because it takes time. And like, we've been doing it for over a year now, just for Reach Cloud, and we keep working on it. It's like, oh, there's another thing to add, there's another feature, because you're like, oh, what if we did this? And if you're trying to do that and manage a community at the same time and do all these other things, it kind of limits how fast you can grow. And that, I think, is one of the barriers to entry, if we were talking about on those, in the metaverse space. So to see the way that we want to build is we're really looking at it as, can we build a platform that allows content and users to be generated in a very easy manner, and have different maybe tiers of where people can build in these worlds, can build their own worlds, can build on worlds that we have created, can link their own personal worlds to their, say, their plot on our lands that we've created, because we did build lands to show people like, yeah, you can do this. And clearly we want to provide value to the people who have bought into those lands and have been using those. So we really see it as a platform, basically as like selling pickaxes during the gold rush, just providing the opportunity for people to get into this. For the physical therapy company specifically, the tools that we've provided have allowed them to build physical training modules that the patients can put on the headsets, be immersed in the world, which makes physical training and physical therapy a lot easier for them because they're able to focus a lot better. They're enjoying it more because it's not just raise your arm 50 times or other things, which I'm not an expert on, so I won't talk about too much. But from what we've heard from our client, they're able to enjoy the process more. They're able to get more results out of it. In the same time, the physical therapist that's in the room with them is also in the virtual environment with them on their tablet, able to adjust the training in real time. And the infrastructure that we've created is robust enough that it's able to be used in that environment. So we're more than confident that it's able to be used extremely well in the Web3 environment with the blockchain connection and the tools that we've already built in there to make those more readily accessible to projects.
Yeah, it's really impressive to hear. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking more and more about all the different use cases that could be with Reach, right? So you were just talking
Mhm.
about physical therapy, but I'm also thinking within the health field too. What about doctor visits, using a metaverse? What about maybe, for example, law enforcement training, pilot
Mhm.
school training, even school in the metaverse, right? So I'm sure these ideas are things that you guys have already thought of. But in addition to the first integration that we are just talking about with the physical therapy, what other kind of integrations or what other kind of partners are you guys working with right now into using and leveraging the benefits of the Reach Metaverse?
Hmm. And that is a key point. Is we are live right now. We do have clients that are Web 2 that are developing things, and Web 3 that are developing more blockchain connected games or elements or community spaces. Currently, we have another client that's doing digital. They do digital marketing, and they're building out employee training rooms as well as a couple surgical simulations for their own clients using our engine. So that's kind of where the metaverse as a service can come in, and agencies or individuals who get comfortable using this can easily build a metaverse as a service built business off of Reach. So we've seen some people who are exploring that. One of our users is exploring that with real estate and taking 3D scans of buildings and doing real estate investment showings in the metaverse, or doing like what's the word, setting the house to be kind of demo what it would look like if you were to buy it, because there's a big difference in visualization. One of those elements actually kind of bleeds into AR, which I think for future use cases, as AR technology continues to get better and improve and the headsets get easier to use and more accessible, the 3D infrastructure that we've created will be easily scalable into augmented reality and the blending of realities. Because for that to be functional, you have to have a 3D virtual environment that's easily accessible, easily editable, and the general populace are able to use easily. So that's another area where I can see this really going and developing and having a lot of impact.
Yeah, again, the possibilities there are kind of mind blowing because now you're taking it to an even further level of integration with the VR, the
Mhm.
sound, really taking you there inside of the metaverse, not to where you're looking at it on a screen, but now you're actually in there immersed
Mhm.
with, the goggles and everything like that. So really cool concepts to think about. And I'm happy to hear that you guys are thinking about that future game plan there. Now,
Mhm.
let's switch gears a little bit. We've talked about Cardano and why you guys are here, but let's kind of talk about your plans outside and your bigger plans when it comes to just blockchain in general, right? I
Mhm.
think over the course of the past few weeks, we've seen multiple other projects, not necessarily metaverse projects, move outside of Cardano, but go multi-chain. So, for example, we had
Mhm.
Meld, we had Book.io, we've got World Mobile. A lot of these blue chip projects on Cardano are looking outside and they're looking at somehow connecting to these other networks. So I'm asking you, are you guys looking to do the same thing? And what are the advantages of you guys potentially moving to become multi-chain?
Mhm. So first off, we already support Cardano integration within worlds. So people can create worlds, they can apply certain functionalities, token gating, access, as well as applying multiple different levels of technical connection to Cardano. We also support that for Ethereum. And our goal is to continually add more chains, basically adding more tools to the proverbial toolbox for creators and users to access. Our goals with that really are connecting communities, and also kind of like we were talking about earlier, is that we see a lot of potential. When you're building tools, it's very easy to build a tool and go, this is how I think it should be used. And oftentimes you'll have community and people with different perspectives come in and look at that and go, oh, well, what if you did this with it? Or I could use it this way. And you start getting a lot more creativity and a lot more opportunities for people than you originally intended. So we've seen that already with some of the tools that we've built. And one, adding more communities that can access and use this technology, I think will continue to grow the general metaverse space and adoption. Two, it'll bring a lot more ideas in because no one chain or one community has all the ideas or all the people. And it's another element where this is one of my favorite things about Web3. Like I said, my favorite question earlier to ask people is, how do you get into this? Because people from different perspectives will look at the same opportunities and make vastly different assumptions about them. And I think by building that connection between communities, we can have more opportunities and more, honestly, project partnerships, collaborations, because it opens up doors to having not only cross platform but cross chain compatibility within projects that originally never would have had a way to really connect, more than like a shared Twitter giveaway where it's like, hey, we're giving away this on our project, this on our project. But that's the barrier for how close they can get. We're basically removing that to say you guys can get way closer than you thought before, and the flow of information and ideas can flow way faster without that barrier in the way.
Now, I like that. And I think in a perfect world, that sounds amazing. But I've got to throw a wrench in here. I know and you know that Cardano people love Cardano. Ethereum people love Ethereum people. You've
Mm-hmm.
also got Cardano maxis, you've got Avalanche maxis, you've got maxis on every blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
So with this cross integration of communities, how are you guys going to go ahead and do that, given the fact that sometimes there can be so much hostility
Mm-hmm.
between, different communities? So again, like, how are you guys going to be able to mix these communities and integrate them if you guys are looking to build and be bigger than just Cardano?
Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of that, and I think you can often get a lot of echo chambers on the chain. So it's a really good point. And on our chain, on other chains, on chains that we connect to, on chains that we don't even touch yet, there's a lot of bubbles. And I think when you start blending, and or at least start giving the opportunity to blend, you're going to have some people that are going to go, why would I go over there? Like, why do I want to integrate with this other chain when my chain does everything I need it to? And I think there's an element where certain chains will do things better than other chains, but they might not do everything better. And I think everybody on a chain can realize that there are certain pain points to each one. And that's where I think just by sheer exposure, you'll have some of those maxis that go, well, yeah, I'm a maxi, but I mean, I got to recognize like they do this well. And giving them the opportunity to kind of experience that and go, okay, well, maybe I'll use it a little bit, or maybe I'll try it, or at least giving the opportunity to kind of dip their toes in, and basically making it easier to onboard and have some cross play or cross connectivity. But I think also Web3 is a very collaborative space. I know you saw it when we were at CNFTCon. You meet people and everybody's like another person who's passionate about the things I'm passionate about. And we might have different beliefs on the best way to implement something, but we can go, this is cool. This is going to be game changing. How can this go, and start riffing off of each other? And I think a majority of the community is like that. I think a majority of people want to see new opportunities, are curious, and want to share their ideas with other like-minded individuals. So I think ultimately you might have some, well, why would I go to this Cardano space, or why would I go to this Ethereum space? And sure, you can build a purely Ethereum or a purely Cardano space, but you could also go to an Ethereum and Polygon and Cardano and start adding all these other chains. And if you want to use it, great. If you don't, you can stay in your bubble, but you always know that door's open to you to join the rest of us in the multiple bubbles.
I really like what you said there about each blockchain having its own strengths. That's something that I didn't realize until very recently, right? Again, I think within the echo chambers, especially within the Cardano community, we think that, or a lot of people, let me not say we, a lot of people tend to think that Cardano is just the best. And again, Cardano does a lot of things very well, but I've also had to realize that there's other chains that do other things way better than how we do. Now, one of the main strengths to Cardano, I think, is the community and other
Mhm.
aspects of the actual blockchain, for example, like staking, right? It didn't take me long to go outside of Cardano and try to do staking in other areas to realize how much of a gift we have here with
Mhm.
liquid staking on Cardano and how it was just implemented. And so again, I'm happy to hear that you guys are going to be looking outside and beginning to kind of take a stab at mixing these communities, which I think is going to be something that's going to have to happen over time regardless. Like whether or not we want to admit that, that's where the future is going to be. And so I want to ask you, where do you think the multi-chain of metaverses, or the metaverses that are going
Mhm.
to be going multi-chain, are going to be in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was asked something similar on a Twitter space not too long ago about whether I think there's going to be one chain that all the metaverses or all the games are going to want to go to. And I don't think that's the case. I think that's kind of going back to the point of metaverses being the UI of blockchain. And there are some UIs that are very specific to certain elements and very focused on one set of functionalities or one set of experiences. But I think the ability to have functionality cross chain is going to allow for, kind of like I was alluding to earlier, multi chain games, multi chain communities, events where, like, say you have an Ethereum room and a Cardano room. And if you have both of those represented projects, you can go into both of them, or maybe you can only go into one, or maybe you have a project that's like, we have these NFTs that we have one on four of these different chains. And if you have three of the four, then you're a this level member, or you can access this functionality, or those type of things. I think are going to be more available. So a lot of the stuff that we see already, but with the added layer of potentially mixing other chains in, I would love to see a metaverse game that has like almost I thought about it almost as like a level progression. Like levels 1 through 5, you get Cardano stuff. Level 5 through 8, you get Ethereum. It's something like that. Like there's tons of different ways that you could do this, and I'm sure other people are going to think of vastly different ways that are probably better than the ones that I would think of. But I think there's a lot of opportunities there.
I agree too. And what this reminds me of is kind of like traditional Web2 gaming, right? So, for example, you take something like Madden. You've got Madden on Xbox, you've got Madden on PlayStation, you've got Madden
Mm-hmm.
on PC, and theoretically it's the same game, but it's on different platforms. And so I think that's how metaverses are also going to be, to the point where you may have a metaverse, for example. Let me just pick one, Cornucopias, right? They're building on
Mm-hmm.
Cardano, but they may have an instance that maybe runs off of Ethereum, where if you're coming in through the Ethereum version of the game, you could still interact with people on Cardano, right? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
quote unquote one metaverse, but they could be running on two separate blockchains. So again, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not an expert here, but that's just how I'm thinking about it. For example, like Fortnite, you take Fortnite, you can be playing on console with somebody who's playing on PC, right? On the same exact server, but you guys are coming in from two completely different angles, where somebody's on computer and mouse and somebody's actually playing with the physical controller. So again,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I'm thinking about how the metaverses could potentially be, where these different networks are the different entry points, but they're all leading to the same quote unquote server, or the same quote unquote metaverse.
Mm-hmm. And having that world or that experience that is there, and there's multiple ways to get into that. It's whatever suits you best. That almost goes back to one of the pieces. I don't remember if I talked about this earlier. I don't think I did, but one of the things that we believe is, for a metaverse or any future iteration of the internet or access through the internet to be functional, it needs to be at least as accessible as the previous version. So currently, like, you can access the internet on your PC, your phone. Like there's some little elements you can do on your watch if you have a smartwatch, but we're also adding the element of VR. We're also adding the element potentially for AR. And I think it's important for people to have multiple ways to use something, because everybody's living different lives and everybody has different times and best ways to access it, and even just preferences. Like I prefer to use my phone a lot. I'm on it a ton. I also love my laptop, but odds are if I'm going to quickly access something, it's my phone. And so I think the metaverse needs to be accessible that way as well.
And to that point, I think we are seeing a slow shift now. Granted, I think it's going to take a long time before we get to metaverses on mobile, but we're already seeing things like wallets,
Mm-hmm.
dexes, and even DeFi protocols are now starting to build for mobile adoption, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think metaverses, given how much more in depth they are and how much more detailed and nuanced they may not be the first ones there on mobile, but I think it's going to be a natural progression to that, just like we saw, with mobile games on iPhones, with the
Mm-hmm.
the Play stores and all of that. I'm sure that you remember. I forget this little running game that you would always play, and you jump around, and there's like all these puzzle games. Anyway, there's been a
Yeah.
massive shift from playing on traditional consoles to mobile, and I think it's going to be the same exact thing with metaverses, where the majority of them will probably be on computer first, then maybe console,
Mm-hmm.
but then I think there's going to be some kind of shift towards a
Mm-hmm.
mobile metaverse, and you're probably at that point not even going to realize
Yeah.
that it's all being done through blockchain technology and all that, because at that point it's probably going to be so refined. But I think,
Yep.
to your point, that it is going to be inevitable that we're going to go to the least what is the way to say this, the easiest way to access the metaverse.
There's a point Elon Musk said a few years back
Hmm.
that I think the way he said is we're already cyborgs. We just have a bad interface with the internet. We're already
Hmm.
so connected to it, but this is the fastest interface that we have. So that's where I think that it was back. He was talking about Neuralink being a way that you can interface more easily with the internet and kind of remove some of those barriers to
Hmm.
interfacing. And I think you're right that we're going to move towards that adoption on cellular devices and being able to access it a little bit more quickly. And that's one of the things that does take a lot of development, which is why we've kind of done that already. So you can actually access our worlds on your phone through the Reach app, and you can build something that's cross functional on your PC. Like we do weekly meetings, and our CEO is often really busy. So he hops in on his phone while he's working and is
Wow.
in the same world while I'm in on my PC. Our CTO sometimes hops in VR, and we can have that same meeting, have screen sharing and everything in that while still accessing it from completely different devices. And to your point of consoles, we do want to get to consoles. It's in the overall roadmap, but there's so many features we're trying to add that one hopefully will be coming within like the next year or so. Don't hold me to that. I don't want to overpromise my developers, but it is something we've been considering.
Well, it sounds like you guys have been delivering. I didn't realize you guys were already, doing cross-compatible platforms like that
Yep.
with mobile, and like you mentioned, PC, etc. I thought you guys were still solely focusing on, PC and browser-based stuff, but it seems like you guys are already kind of, 2 steps ahead of me. So congratulations on that. I know that that's probably been a lot of development, a lot of time going into that, and to be able to
Thank you.
hopefully, see that coming to fruition has I'm sure made you and the rest of the team extremely happy.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Now, let's keep things moving along here. I want to touch on something that is new to me and maybe to the community as well, and that's going to be the Reach token. So, you
Mm-hmm.
guys are talking about having a token launch on the 15th of May, which is
Mm-hmm.
right around the corner. Why do you guys have a token, and what is going to be the utility of the Reach token?
Yep. It's I think it's very important to ask a project when they have tokens like, all right, why are you doing this? Like what is the purpose and what does this provide? So for us, we see our token as the best way to provide access to our services while simultaneously incentivizing the users of those services. So our token, like I said, you can access our creation and hosting services. You can use it within the worlds. It's kind of like where we want to remove barriers to entry to creating worlds. Uh, while we will reward people who are using the platform, we have a reward system that we've created. We also are rewarding those who have held our token or our NFTs between our condos, our land. So providing ways for them to kind of receive some token for their early access and their patronage, honestly, of allowing us to get to where we are now, and then take that and then turn that into, okay, well, you want to be able to host larger spaces, you want to have more spaces, you can use your token for that. Additionally, Web2 clients can end up using our token to access these services. So we can have Web2 clients that might not normally look for blockchain services, but they can use the element of tokens to access these services cheaper. So any cost effective company will want to do that in a sense to where it saves them money and they access new, very functional technology. We are working on building a marketplace to allow creators to upload assets, have it integrated within the world, and be able to essentially provide more tools for people to build, to do rewards in that, to do discounts with our token, as well as generally providing another removal of barriers to entry into this ecosystem, while simultaneously providing ways that when you're in this ecosystem, you can add and access value from it.
Nice, nice. I really like that build to earn aspect that you just mentioned there towards the end. I wanted to mention this earlier when you were talking about somebody who leveraged your metaverse building tools to do like the housing modeling, right?
Mhm.
You guys are, like you mentioned earlier, providing people with the tools to be able to do this stuff. But I can imagine people building their own businesses using the tools that you guys are providing them. And so it just blows my mind how many opportunities can come about by leveraging what you guys are doing. And then to tie that back again to building to earn, that could be somebody's, part-time job or maybe a hobby that they have, or maybe something that they're already doing in platforms like Blender, but they're
Mhm.
leveraging their skills now in the Reach Metaverse to build some of these standardized tools that they can then turn back around and sell to different people that might leverage that within the Metaverse. So really
Mhm.
cool to see that there, that they could potentially be paid out with the Reach token in doing what they may already be doing for free, right?
Yeah.
Really cool to see that there. Now, you've talked about why the token and how it's going to benefit the community, but I also want to kind of just touch on the longevity of your actual game
Mhm.
plan, right? We've seen plenty of people come into this space, grab liquidity and unfortunately not be able to deliver at times. But
Mhm.
what about your guys' token and what about your guys' platform is so different that you guys know that you
Mhm.
guys will be able to make it and really kind of see this all the way through?
Mhm. There are a couple elements that I think clearly tie to longevity for our token and for our project. One is our service of Web2 and Web3 clients, as well as the allowing for access for Web2 clients of using Web3 technology almost as an onboarding mechanism. One thing that does is it makes sure we are not 100% pegged to crypto markets and that our value comes from providing services to real world and real fi clients rather than just providing speculative value. And not saying that crypto markets are purely speculative value, but I think we can clearly say there's a higher level of speculation in crypto markets than when you're dealing with real fi clients. Um, Another element, we've built our tokenomics over a long period of time, focusing on how to build an economic model that has good distribution, that has good levers on our liquidity, as well as providing mechanisms to really provide extra value to our community. And I have honestly Stephen Ward, who's the CEO of ViFi, he's our tokenomics advisor. He is brilliant. If you ever need help with tokenomics, talk to him. He has been honestly a blessing to our project. Love working with him. So working with him over the course of this past 6 to 8 months on building out just a rigid economic model. One of the other elements that I think is super valuable is we're planning on providing 15% of our revenue from blockchain connected elements of our business. So our own metaverse that we've created, projects that are using our token or paying for our services that are using the Web3 connectivity tools that we have provided in liquidity back to the community as a mechanism to provide stability and value to our community. So the combination of the time that we've spent, that I'd say the caliber of the team that we've built, as well as our history of developing and delivering solid tools that have real world functionality, I think is going to keep our token around for a long time and provide a lot of utility beyond speculation or beyond just simply adding a certain few levels of functionality, but providing a robust ecosystem for our community.
I like that. And shout out to Steven as well. I just had him on yesterday for an interview surrounding Wi-Fi was going to be launching on
Mhm.
no other day than May 15th as well. So
It's a
I'm sure
big
you,
day.
you guys will be celebrating together for different reasons, but I'm happy to hear that again. He and I actually
Mhm.
touched on the Wi-Fi tokenomics, and that was one of the things that I mentioned to him too, was how strong they were. So the fact that you guys are collaborating
Mhm.
together gives me personally high hopes as to what you guys are going to be doing, and a lot more confidence,
Mhm.
right? Because again, you're dealing with somebody who's done this already for another project, and so being able
Yeah.
to leverage that experience and that expertise, I think, is huge. So
Mhm.
that said, let's just quickly touch on some of the numbers, and then we're going to wrap up today's video. Do you kind
Mhm.
of mind touching? And this is obviously if you guys have already made this information public, but do you mind touching on how much the token will be available, for the public sale? What your
Mhm.
plans are, and how you guys are kind of planning to distribute that to the community?
Yeah. So 5% of the token will be available for the public on the public sale. We're still I'll be releasing information on our best ways of access, and I'll share that over to you so you can potentially put it in the description, as well as we're going to be putting it on our Twitter. So the best places to find out all the information on where to access token, how to get it, is going to be following our Twitter, join our Discord, those ways. Total, we have 500 million tokens, so 5% of that is going to be coming out for the public sale. Like I said, we'll also on TGE going to be working with Genius X on, if you've been following since we talked about staking earlier, the multi-token ISPO that we were a part of with Genius, that will be being released to our community that engaged in that as well. So there will be ways to earn or ways to access it through that with Genius. There's also going to be ways where you'll be able to access token and earn it from your condos, from your land plots, as well as we're going to have a farm on Wi-Fi when we launch, and we're also talking with MinSwap about having a farm there. So there'll be multiple different ways to kind of have liquidity and access, and all that information will be coming out through our Twitter and Discord.
Nice, nice. I'm very excited to hear that, and the fact that you're also able to leverage Wi-Fi to actually get a liquidity pool and get access to anybody that may want to pick this token up there as well. And so I'm going to go
Mhm.
ahead, like you mentioned, and leave all of the links to your socials and all of the links to the upcoming public sale down in the description. And on that note, CJ, I want to just thank you for stopping by and sharing with us all the updates that you guys have been working on. I'm looking forward to having you back on the channel. The last thing I want to ask you is just going to be, are there any closing thoughts or points that you want to make sure that the community takes away from this call?
The biggest one I'd say is keep watching this guy. From the way that he's been grinding and working and his ethic on this, he's gonna keep going. He's gonna keep growing, and I'm glad to have been and to continue to be a part of that. Check out our socials, follow information there. If you're interested in building a metaverse, I guarantee you it's easier than you think. Go to our website, go to app.reachcloud.org to open up the app. You can log in and start creating your own metaverse in our Myverse builder right now and have a live metaverse by the end of the day. Share it with your friends. And if you're skilled in Unity and want to go a little bit crazier on it and start using our SDK to build, one of the things we firmly believe is for something to be functional, you need people to be able to access it. So there's a free tier of use. You can build a world, you can share a world, you can have up to 10 people in it at a time. And there's tons of stuff you can do. So explore, use the tools, be creative. And if you've got ideas, share them with us. We'd love to hear them. We'd love to support you in that. If you've created something and you think it's cool, we'd love to share that out as well and bring more eyes to it. So thank you guys. Community is honestly what makes this possible. So keep watching. Can't wait to see where everything goes.
Thank you for the kind words, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it there from the man himself, CJ, the co-founder from the Reach Metaverse, bringing a new spin to metaverses, not only within Cardano, but within the crypto and blockchain space as a whole. Again, CJ, I look forward to having you back on the channel. I want to thank you for your time. And if the viewers, you guys here that are still watching, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to make it all the way through. If you've enjoyed this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you guys could tap that like button. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more content just like this, consider subscribing. And if you guys have any questions for me or CJ about the Reach Metaverse or Cardano or anything else that we touched on today, then make sure to leave those down in the comment section below. That said, as always, we will both see you guys in the next video.